Ainsley, thank you so much for being part of our 5 Mistakes series. So for those of you who don't know Ainsley, she is more than just a real food expert. She's the owner of Health Food and Beverage Group. She's passionate about building a stronger food system that connects people to their food. Through her coaching, teaching, and consulting, Ainsley helps food founders turn their quality products into irresistible brands and profitable businesses. As the author of Branding Beyond Logos and the host of Food Founders Podcast, she shares her expertise on how to create a food brand that not only tastes great, but also makes a positive impact on the food industry, which is awesome. Everyone should have that goal.
Right? I think so too.
So we are so excited to have you here, Ainsley, to share with us the top 5 mistakes you see when brands are trying to get into retail. So we're going to let you kind of take the driver's seat. We will just be chime in here and there, but we are so excited to hear about the 5 mistakes you see.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me on, guys. And this is something I'm so happy that you invited me to come on and talk about, because all food brands should know this, because it can save you a ton of time, money, and energy down the road if you can really get ahead of this or course correct if you are in the middle of things right now and you're recognizing that maybe you are doing things that are maybe going to stall your growth or not going to get you to where you want to go. So one of the very first things that I always say in terms of one of the biggest mistakes that we will make sometimes as food founders is, number one, not having our finances figured out, right? It's really important to remember you are running a business. This is not a hobby. Unless you want to run it as a hobby, that is totally fine. But this can become
expensive hobby.
Yeah, not recommended.
Very, very expensive hobby. And so really taking the time up front to understand what your cost of goods sold are, understand what those shipping fees are going to be, what it's going to cost to have all of the different manufacturing partners that you can have, what your distributor or broker or retailer is going to take. There's a lot of moving parts in having a food business. And it's not just these are my ingredient costs and that's it, right? Especially if we are selling to a larger market. So number one, the point of a business is to make a profit. So we really need to have that upfront time to understand what that profitability looks like and make sure that it is viable. I can't tell you how many food brands I have spoke with years on in their business, and they come to me and say, Ainsley, I've been in a retailer and I'm losing money with every product that I sell because I didn't know that up front. And then they started to dig deeper and they're like, I'm not making any money. And that's a really, really painful place to be, especially if it's in a retailer that you want to be in and you're losing sales from it. So number one, we got to understand our finances there.
And
number two, oh, go ahead.
Do you feel like there's even more of a thing right now? Because like in the States, we're experiencing some inflation, certainly around food. So like a package of might used to be 10 or $9.99 is now like $12.49 or something like that. So something that clients should be planning for.
Really getting ahead of it right now, reassessing. If you haven't done a price increase for some time, it's a good time to relook at everything. There's a lot of food founders, and of course it happens like this. Your most common ingredient is probably the one that has gone up a lot. I've seen a lot of people have that go up 50%, 100%.
Oh, wow.
So really, really key to take a look at that right now and shop around too, right? As inflation is happening, it's important for you to go back to your suppliers and make sure that you do have the right pricing and double check, hey, is this the right supplier for me right now? Because maybe your supplier could have increased pricing, someone else might not have. That is a key piece to look at, because if you haven't increased your prices in the last few years, but your costs of good have gone up and up, we don't want to get to that point where we're not making any money, and we get closer and closer to that.
Do you recommend that, like, how often should people be looking at their like cost of goods and their financing and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I always recommend during your annual planning. It's a great time to reassess. I always like to have like a running total. This is how much margin we're making per SKU, and tracking that on an annual basis as you're doing like an annual review. Okay, I used to make 46% on this product. Now I'm making 32. Do I need to relook at suppliers? Do I need to increase pricing? Do I need to change the mix in terms of the product that I am promoting more of to help get that overall company profitability piece in? But once a year should be plenty to be able to do that and make sure that you're getting the right pricing and maintaining those margins that you need.
Cool.
Please continue with number 2.
Yeah, we're ready for number 2. Let's keep it going.
Okay. Number 2 is one I can talk all day about, and I'm sure you guys can as well, in terms of making sure that you have a brand that stands out. I always tell people you can have the best tasting product in the world. It can be better than everything else on the store shelf. If it is not standing out, and if it does not look like the type of brand that your ideal audience is going to pick up, retailers are going to overlook it. Consumers are going to overlook it. So having that brand is absolutely crucial for the success of your business. And, I talk a lot of times about having this like just for now branding in terms of, oh, okay, just now until I get some more sales, then I'll make sure it's like out of this park. But it becomes this chicken and the egg situation, because how are you going to get the sales if you don't have a brand that gives retailers confidence and that gives consumer confidence? You actually slow down your growth a lot by not putting your best foot forward. And it's a really hard piece. I think it's just like a hard piece mentally for people to get behind. But think about it, especially as you are a newer food brand, you need to build that trust, right?
Yeah.
If you are a small food brand, chances are your product costs more than the competitors. So it needs to build that trust for it. We can't have the highest price product on the store shelf and be the one no one knows about and have a brand that doesn't stand out and doesn't become the salesperson on store shelf. It really is not setting you up for success. So I know you guys totally get that. 100% on board as well.
It always kills me when I like try a food product like at like a competition or like whatever. Like last night I was judging like a food competition, and like these brands have just delicious food and their packaging, I'm like, oh, I want to die. It's so bad. Like, but I mean, but it's a tough thing, because especially like, I mean, they showed us their numbers, like some of them, they're just so new. It's like it's like you said, chicken and the egg. Like at what point, do you invest? And like, in our opinion, like when you need to invest is when you see that you're leaving money on the table. Like if you see opportunities that you're missing out on because of it. Like if you're not landing retail, if you're not landing in, if you're losing sales because of your branding, that then you for sure need to do it. Like you gotta rip that Band-Aid off and just make it happen.
Yeah.
Totally.
We do a lot of work with a lot of brands where they're starting to get into retail. The first couple stores is probably a good point to think about. Before I push into 3 states, should I be addressing this packaging before suppliers are confused, or I'm producing more and more packaging that has to be then replaced with newer. So there's no perfect time, I think, is kind of the point we're getting to here, but it's probably more ideal to do it sooner rather than later, so that you have a good foundation to attract new clients.
When do you think, Ainsley, when do you like, what's your like perfect timing that you think people should really like, oh yeah, I need to like reevaluate this?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it comes down to if you know that you are truly filling a gap in the market, like if you've done that upfront research, right? And you really see that there is an opportunity for the product, that you have your pricing down pat, that you can make this work. Like if you see the business case for your product, I'm like, go for it from day one. It is going to save you a ton of time, money, and energy down the road.
Yeah.
And you're just really like setting yourself up for that more. Now, if you've been in market for some time and, you know, we're past that, then, you know, again, I would come back to, do you know that you have a product that people really want, right? Because you know, it does take time, money, and energy to do a rebrand, to redo these things. So if you're already in market and you're not, okay, maybe I should redo this, like come back to the foundations. Is there really a market for this? Is this a business that I really want to like take forward? If I really do, okay, then let's do that. You know, do I have the right pack size, pieces like that? If you have those, once you have those business foundational pieces figured out, then go for it. Like put your best foot forward. It is going to speed up your success so much more, I think. Even if you're selling online too, like almost it's especially online in some ways, because think about if we're in a store, at least there is the brand reputation of that store that's haloing onto your brand. If you're just online, I mean, who are you? Right? Like you're competing with the whole wide internet. And I'm like, I don't know if you're legitimate. I don't know if these claims are real. There's no backing. And it that trust piece is so important. And having a really strong brand builds that trust. And online, that's so key. Like consumers question everything right now. And so we have to have the brand. So I'm someone who's like, once you have the foundational pieces and you know you want to make this work, like go all in and just do it.
Yeah, agreed.
Awesome. Cool. What's your number 3?
Okay, that's my favorite one to always talk about because I think it's so key, so important. The third piece, the third one is really, you know, making sure that we have predictable and reliable production set up, especially when you're going to retail. Because the last thing that you want to do is have a hole on your retailer store shelves and they can't make money with your product there. So you want to make sure that whether you're doing it yourself, you know, if it's home kitchen, whether you're doing it with a commercial kitchen, if you're doing it with a co-packer, whatever that may be, you just want to make sure that you have a process set up and that you can keep up with inventory, right? Like sometimes people will be like, okay, I'm going to go pitch to Walmart. And if you don't have the production capability for that, like come way back, you're not going to, number one, they're going to figure that out. And number two, you don't want to be set up in a store and then not be able to keep up with that. So really make sure that you have the right partners in place or just a production system for yourself set up, because you don't want to leave holes on a retailer shelf. That is a great way to go backwards on all the hard work that you did to get that store listing in the first place. So just really make sure that you can keep up with that.
Oh yeah. Well, especially now, like, I mean, with all production issues and things like that, and like, sourcing ingredients and like sourcing all of that stuff, like, you know, is there some like tips or tricks you would recommend? Like, you know, how do you vet these people to make sure that,
how do you know if a co-manufacturer is going to
like,
keep up?
going to keep up? Like, is there like something you think is like really helpful to ask them to make sure that they can produce at the level you need?
Yeah, so it's always good to see like what their production capabilities is. Like a good question I would always ask is what percentage capacity are you at right now? Right. So if they're at 90% capacity, if your business, you know, takes off, they're not going to be able to grow with you. At the other end, you don't want someone who's at 20% capacity, because that means they might not have the cash flow coming in that they need to keep up with running those expensive equipment pieces that they have. So I always like to see where people are at with a production capability. If you know another brand that is being produced there, always great to just chat with them and see what it's like. Have you had any issues? Anything like that. If you even you know that a brand is produced there and you can't get a hold of the founder, I mean, you can, you know, just take a look in your own backyard. Like, is this product always on store shelf or not? It could be a production capability perspective in terms of if there's constant holes on shelf, either the distributor or the producer, and the producer being the co-man at this point. So you can kind of, you know, check those. You want You want that consistent piece. And then you just want to have a really good like agreement with them. Really go through that contract with a fine tooth comb.
Carefully.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I know that's like, that's a
Absolutely.
whole other podcast. Like,
Totally.
That's 6 through 10 right there.
yeah. Like, oh my gosh, those contractor agreements, like, oh my goodness, they could just be bananas.
They can vary a lot from what we've seen, and be careful who has rights or like a portion of your sales, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who
yeah.
owns the
They can be
recipe, right?
Yeah, they can be written
Who
however.
owns the recipe? Yeah, that's like
Mhm.
another one. Okay. We're going down the rabbit hole. Sorry.
Definitely read the contract very well. Make sure you have all the rights. And also I will also say, like, don't be afraid to go to a co-manufacturer, right? If it's the right step for your business, and coming back to, if you feel like you have a like that business case, like, go for it. Because a lot of times I hear people say, oh, I don't want to use a co-manufacturer. I've heard so many horror stories. Well, I mean, if you want to get to a really massive level, you're going to have to, unless you're going to create your own production facility. So
Oh my God.
Don't do it.
Wow. I
game.
don't even want to know the cost of that.
Yeah, right. So like you have to build that. You have to build that trust. And yes, there are horror stories throughout the industry, but learn from those horror stories to make sure that you don't have those same mistakes. But they can be they are an integral part of your success when you have the right partners. And I think you should look at everyone in your business like partners, right? And those are the people that you want to bring on board.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
well
Awesome.
said.
Yeah.
Well
Yeah.
done.
Well said. So what's your next
So,
one?
okay, so number 4, and I kind of touched on this for a few different pieces, but one of the biggest mistakes is not having a validated product for our audience.
Oh.
So just because you have a delicious raspberry, strawberry, rhubarb, banana jam, random flavor, right? But you
Yeah.
love it.
Yes.
You love it, and all your friends and family are like, this is a thing, and it's a family recipe that's great. That can be really great or not, but we need to have the research to validate it. I really believe that data can help us drive a lot of the decisions. So don't just let a great tasting product drive your business decision as to if you're going to do it. You want to make sure, is there a market for this? Are people going to buy this? Is there room in the category for this? Am I differentiating enough? And that doesn't always need to be just with product. You can differentiate through your brand so easily. But really making sure that there is a market, right? Versus just simply, this tastes great. I actually caution against that. This tastes great, therefore it should be a business. That's a given, right? Like, we're in the food industry, like, everyone expects that it tastes great. So you need to have something more than that, and we need to make sure that we just have like a business case for it. And that includes things like pricing and things like, example, on the weekend I was at a farmer's market, and someone had this really great sea moss beverage, and it tasted great. Sea moss, really good for inflammation, really great for you. And he had all these great flavors. And, for a regular bottle, it was like $15. And that's not even retail. And I was like, if you just want to be at farmers markets, you're still even going to struggle at that price point, probably.
Yeah.
But can you really take it to the next level? And you really need to come back and like be real with yourself when you're validating those business pieces, in terms of, no one wants to take this in retail. It's like, because you're premium priced, don't have the proper branding for it, you have a short shelf life. Like, we need to look at everything other than just the taste of it.
Yeah. You bring up a really good point though, like about the price point. So like your very first thing was about finances, not having that figured out. So like knowing like the cost of goods, and then like the labor to make the product, the packaging, all of that. I mean, they're all important pieces, but it's like, I mean, that juice better have like some gold flakes or something in it. If I'm spending $15 on it, like,
totally.
I mean, it better cure cancer. I don't even know. Like,
Right?
I mean, I think that a lot of times people just get so wrapped up in like the taste that they're like, people will spend anything, and
Yeah,
not really.
totally.
Certainly there are a lot of competitors that talk about like a saturated category like barbecue sauce.
Yeah.
You know, like I bet you make a great barbecue sauce, but
Mhm.
how different is it? Because we know the base ingredients of sauce, tomatoes, and gonna be sugar in there. And so like, are you taking a different direction, a different approach?
Mm-hmm.
But like you have to consider like, is there a different category? Can you make it different enough? So like last night you said someone had fair trade chocolate or equal exchange.
Yeah, it was like dairy-free, vegan, fair trade chocolate.
So that's a really different offering in a pretty saturated, confectionery market. But
Mhm.
by doing something different in the community, that could be a differentiator for people.
So
Yeah.
what are ways that you recommend to get like that validation? Like, you mentioned like going to farmer's market, but is there like, how would you recommend like a couple tips?
Yeah, there's lots of industry data out there. Like, is there a market for this, what I'm looking for? Is it growing, right? I don't want to be launching a, new jam and jam is on the decline, right? Like you're
Right.
kind of setting yourself up for struggle there because you need to sell it to people who there's going to be less of that pie, right? So you want to look for where the industry is going. That example of the chocolate, like that's hitting on all these like key things that people are looking for, right? So we want to make sure that we are going with the trends with that. So there's tons and tons of industry research out there. I do that for a lot of different brands where I just look at the industry research available and help, sift through it to understand, okay, where is the opportunity for this? Chat with your consumers, chat with customers, go and chat with people, right? What are they looking for a product? What would get you to buy a new barbecue sauce, right? What's important to you when you're buying barbecue sauce, and really get down to their core purchasing intent other than just price, right? We never want to play that game. It's like a race to the bottom.
I don't think you'll ever win against
Yes,
a large
everyone will go for Sweet Baby Ray's for like $1 or whatever the hell.
Totally.
or store brands who can
Or
produce
store,
things
yeah,
almost
store
like
Yeah.
pucks,
Yeah.
Totally. And we don't want to be in that game, right?
Yeah.
Like that's not serving you as a founder. So those are some different, talk with people, do some industry research. You can also see, like, you can just kind of use what's happening in the market. Are you starting to see a little bit more mushroom jerky going on? Okay, well, we're starting to see more mushroom jerky. Great, I've got a new mushroom jerky. How can I differentiate from everyone else? And differentiation can be product, it can be packaging, it can be a brand, it can be all sorts of different things, but we just don't want to show up if everyone says, sweet and delicious for barbecue. I mean, if you go say the exact same thing with the exact same kind of packaging, like you're going to have a hard time standing out, especially charging a premium price.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. All right. Last one.
All right.
Hit me with it. I'm excited.
So the fifth biggest mistake when we're trying to get into retail is not knowing how to pitch to retail. Like,
oh God, yeah.
So many times it's like walking in and it's, hey, I've got a great tasting product. You'll see I've kind of thrown that through a lot. It's not about the taste of the product, right? Like we can't go into a retailer and just, hey, I've got a great tasting product. Do you want to put it on your store shelf? They hear that from brands all the time, right? Like why are they going to put you on the store shelf? Because they're taking the product, but they're taking your organization as well. And they don't want to handle it. They're busy as heck. They've got a ton of different brands. So if you don't even know how to go in and properly pitch them, use the right language that they're looking for, show them where the opportunity is, talk to them about how they're going to make money, where in the store it's going to go, you're not giving them the confidence that you are the type of partner that they want to have. Again, you can have the best tasting product in the world, but I mean, if you don't give them the confidence that they don't need to handhold you, that you're not going to be able to, if you don't have the confidence that you're going to be able to keep up with production, if you don't have the right brand, we need to have all these pieces to be able to properly pitch a retailer to get them excited with it. And it is, It is not, again, not just what it tastes like. I've sold a number of products in without ever having the retailer taste the product, because it's not about that at the end of the day.
Oh, that's interesting. I figured like that was like half the battle is that they find it tasty.
I thought it was at least
Yeah.
like the last step or something. Like,
Yeah.
you must pass.
They assume that it doesn't taste horrible, right? Like they
Right.
assume that if you're bringing it there, a lot of them, especially more sophisticated ones, are like, look, I don't like raspberry jam anyway, so who cares, right? And they might give it to, someone that they know, sure. But a lot of times they trust that if you're coming there, you've got something great. Now, do we want to get them to taste the product? Sure, especially if you feel really proud about it. Yes, but that is not really the key piece that's going to get them to say yes. It's a lot of the other things that we've talked about before, even, right?
Mhm.
Have you shown them that there is an actual business opportunity for this product? Do you have a brand that's going to connect with people? You have the finances figured out so that they can make a profit from it. Can you give them the confidence that you are going to be able to keep up with production? These are all ding, ding, ding key things that they want to hear. But if we just go in like a lot of new food brands do, and go in and say, hey, I've got this great tasting product, you should put it on your store shelf, we're literally not speaking the same language as them. And so it makes it really hard for them to have the confidence and want to put you on their store shelves.
Yeah, it seems like data is really like the key thing that will get you in. Like if you can show them like
Makes sense.
like, hey, in this area, like I know that there's all these bagel shops or all these different places that are gonna need this jam, like, then that could be like a great way of like potentially selling them. If you do your data research on the area and you know that there's like all these opportunities because they don't have your product in their store, like that they're missing out on, like how could you say no to that, right?
Yeah. It makes it so much easier, right? Like we can be subjective with taste, but I mean, data is data. So it makes it a lot easier for you to go and sell in if you can go and talk confidently about those data points. That gets them seeing the opportunity, and gets them seeing where your product can fit in. How are you going to make them money, right? That's what they are. If it's a corporate store, that's what they're going to get that next promotion. If it is a smaller store, that is, how they get bonus. That's how they look great. That's how they contribute to that overall team. And if it's your own store, heck, that's your bottom line, right? So all really, really key pieces.
Awesome.
Definitely.
Well, thank you so much for all this amazing information. So if people want to get in touch with you, what's a great way like for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. I can chat about this stuff all day long.
So can we.
I know. If you want to get in touch, you can go to thehealthyfoodandbeveragegroup.com, or I am over on Instagram at Ainsley Moir, or give me a call or shoot me a text. I'm at 1-833 on shelf. So always happy to connect with you guys and help in your food founder journey.
Oh, awesome.
Perfect.
Thanks again so much,
Thank
Ainsley. We really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us.
Yeah, great to connect with you guys. Thanks.
All right.